Welcome to Ashland's 2022 deliberative session. Now I'm going to ask you, can you hear me with the mask on and the mic?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to check. Just a few rules, so to speak. Since this deliberative session is in a school building, masks are required by the school. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. It's behind us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, just a few procedural. The people to my right are your Board of Selectmen. I don't know why they asked the town manager to be over here, but he's over on this side. To the left are the Budget Committee members. Marissa, our finance manager, is there. The town attorney is supposed to be here shortly. And a few reminders for everyone. Everyone, please silence all your cell phones except for emergency personnel, obviously. When anyone wishes to speak or ask a question, please raise your hand to be recognized by myself, the moderator. When you go to the microphone, which is right there in the middle, please state your name. Remember, this is your business meeting to review the different budgets and several warrant articles prior to our March 8th town election. It's your opportunity to ask questions or make amendments to articles. Be sure you have picked up the voter's guide, and there's different informational brochures over on this table to assist you in following with the discussions today. I said about that, and I think that's it. It's the voter's guide is just, it's the warrant. It's not, it doesn't say on the top voter's guide, but it's the warrant to follow along. It'll make it a whole lot easier for everybody if you have that. All right, thank you. And we shall begin. Okay, we're starting with the Article 1 is the election of officers. Board of Selectmen, 3-year term, 1 opening. Charles Bozello, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, Rebecca Hartley. Trustee of the Trust Funds, 3-year term, 1 opening, Walter Durack. Library Trustee, 3-year term, 1 opening, Alice Staples. Supervisor of the Checklist, 6-year term, 1 opening, Patty Bickford. Budget Committee, 3-year term, 2 openings, David Rule and David Unangst. There's 2 positions on Cemetery Trustee. Excuse me? I didn't know if somebody said something. 2 openings on Cemetery Trustee, and no one has put their name in. And Town Moderator, 2-year term, myself, Bobby Horder. All right, moving on to Article 2. Are you in favor of adoption of Amendment 1 as proposed by Planning Board for the Ashland zoning ordinance? Are you in favor of amending Article 4.6 recreational camping parks of the Ashland zoning ordinance as proposed by the Planning Board by adding new section 4.6A, which states that all campgrounds are bound by the provisions of New Hampshire RSA 216-I, and by moving the current wording pertaining to campgrounds in the overlay districts to section 4.6B. The purpose is to add a reference to New Hampshire RSA 216I, which governs all recreational camping parks and campgrounds in New Hampshire, including Ashland. Now I'm going to skip down into the body because a lot of this is repetitive. Within the Pemigewasset and Little Squam overlay districts, the following standards shall also apply. 1, the minimum area shall be 5 acres. 2, A 35-foot landscape buffer strip shall be maintained along all perimeters of the park, except that along the riverfront. The buffer strip shall be 75 feet wide. Within this space, a dense visual screen of suitable shrubs and trees, 6 feet or more in height, shall be provided. Such open space shall not be built upon, paved, nor used for parking. This was recommended by the planning board. Does anyone have, okay, Mardane?
I'm Mardine Badger, Chairman of the Planning Board. Just to clarify, the part that is being added is
Can't hear you. There.
the part that is being added is the underlined part, which is 4.6A. A recreational camping park is governed by New Hampshire RSA Chapter 216I, whose terms are incorporated herein. The rest that Bobby just read is the existing wording.
Thank you, Mardane. Any other questions? Oh,
Are current campgrounds grandfathered, or there's really no change to whatever they?
There is no change because that chapter in the RSA has always been in effect.
okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no other questions, Article 2 will appear on the ballot as presented. Is it? As written. Article 3. Shall the town, now I'm going to entertain a motion to, pardon me? I'm going to do the article, pardon me. Article 3, no tax impact. Shall the town of Ashland vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5 million for the purpose of providing wastewater upgrades to the Ashland wastewater treatment plant, with $5 million of said sum to be raised by the issuance of bonds or notes for a period not to exceed 20 years, under and in accordance with Municipal Finance Act RSA 33, such bonds or notes to be paid from the town of Ashland sewer funds. And to authorize Board of Selectmen and the town treasurer to issue, negotiate, and sell and deliver such bonds and notes, and to determine the rate of interest thereon, and the maturity and other terms thereof in accordance with the Municipal Finance Act. To authorize the Board of Selectmen to apply for, contract for, obtain, accept, and expend any federal, state, or other available aid or funds toward the project in accordance with the terms and conditions under which they are received, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project, and to borrow in anticipation of the receipt of such funds and or the issuance of such funds or notes as provided by Municipal Finance Act. To authorize the Board of Selectmen to implement such cost-effective solutions as are presented in the future that they deem to be in the best interest of the town, that may result in a lesser amount of property tax or sewer department revenue expenditure than is authorized by this warrant article. To authorize the Board of Selectmen to apply to participate in the State Revolving Fund, RSA 48:14, established for this purpose. And to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the Congress of the United States to appropriate or otherwise provide funding for all tax and sewer revenue impact funding not otherwise provided by grants or forgiveness by the state and federal governments in recognition of the plus 21% of the population of Ashland that has income below the federal poverty level. To authorize the Board of Selectmen to take any and all actions or to pass any other vote necessary to carry out the project in the best interests of the town of Ashland. A bond article in this amount requires a 3/5 vote on March 8th. And also, I forgot Article 3, no tax impact, it says. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 5-2. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0. Do I have any questions? Or does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. It says no tax impact, but down in like the fourth paragraph, it says to authorize the Board of Selectmen to implement such cost-effective solutions that may result in a lesser amount of property tax. If there's no tax impact, why is that there?
Good question. Is there anybody to answer that question?
I'll get with the
Oh,
moderator, Madam.
okay.
Madam Moderator, on
All right.
the microphone, so there won't be any question to be heard. It's a safeguard. We have no idea what the federal government or the state government will do in the next 20 years. It's there just in case they change legislation and we have to have a tax impact, which is not now on the books. But they can do that retroactively because these are grant funds, and they can withdraw them or do anything they want with them. This is a safeguard. It's similar to all the other language that's in there, so that we're taking a bond out, we can pay for this in cash every year. We're doing that in case something happens to the wastewater treatment plant and we need the cash that we're raising from revenue sources to fix the individual problem that we have, and we're allowed to pay off the loan without any additional interest and no penalties and costs. So we're taking a precautionary stand on every particular item that's in this particular warrant article and how it's funded, so that we can continue to do this from income revenue and not impact the tax rate. But we can't determine what the state and federal governments will do in the future. That's why it's worded the way it is.
Patsy, does that answer your question? I noticed the same area of question myself. Any other comments?
Sorry, what does the $5 million involve? That's a lot of money.
So I assume the Board of Selectmen is going to have your town manager answer all questions? Nothing's been communicated to me on this meeting from the town, just so you all know. Yes, it does.
5
Jeanette,
million.
you're out of line.
Madam Moderator,
Yes,
to answer the question,
yes.
the $5 million is a result of a permit that was issued by the federal government to continue use of the wastewater plant. They have insisted that certain improvements be made to that plant. The cost of those improvements are $5 million. We are bonding them to be sure we have the authority to spend that $5 million over 20 years. Without that, they have the right to pull a license, which means they can come in and take the plant over, they can run it, and do these appropriations and expenditures all in 1 year and tax us for it all in 1 year without any revenue. We don't want to do that. We're taking the very cautious standpoint of protecting the town and the taxpayers by wording everything this way and doing it this way. So you don't have to have an expectation that you will in fact have a tax impact from this. The federal government is behind us in this. They're giving us almost 50% of the money that's necessary to do the work, but we have to appropriate the money for all the work, because the law requires us to do that, or we can only do that portion, which is the town's portion. The federal portion we wouldn't be able to spend without this appropriation.
Just have a follow-up, Fred. How long's the project, if it is funded and everything, how long does the project, is it a year's project or is it 2 years project to complete all the?
I believe to answer your question, I believe if you look in the handout, you'll see that final finish of construction is December of 2024. That's where it's projected.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Seeing no other questions, Article 3 will appear on the ballot as written. Article 4, estimated tax impact, $12.10. Shall the town of Ashland vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes as set forth therein, totaling $3,074,368. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $3,010,544, which is the same as last year, meaning 2021, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town of Ashland or by law. Or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Majority vote required. Recommended by the Budget Committee 5-2. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Do I have any questions on Article 4? Lee? You gotta hear that one.
For those that don't know me, my name's Lee Nichols. I'm on the Budget Committee, and I challenge the default budget, being that for the Highway Department, for example, they've appropriated $3,000, and that should go default. That should be deducted from the budget, from the default budget. And to back this up, employee raises, and this is according to budget law. This means that employee raises should not be included unless they are required by legally binding and previously ratified contract obligating the municipality to fill particular positions or employ particular people at certain wages. I don't believe that everybody that's under the financial part of this budget is under contract. For suggestion, library, I don't believe they're under contract. This default budget should be decreased.
And do you have a proposed figure? Are you making a motion, or are you just?
I'm questioning, the town attorney's not here, so it's a legal.
No, okay. Then this is definitely a legal question, because I've gone over this, and there's a lot about the default budget, but there's not a remedy that I found.
And I'm not sure what the question was. I understand you feel that the cost of the highway department should not be included because there is no.
I'll read you an example. If I can find it real quick, yeah. It says, while the per unit cost of certain commodities may increase from one year to the next year, such as the cost per kilowatt hour of electricity, or the cost per ton of asphalt. The default budget includes the amount of the money appropriated for the purpose here, not the amount that will be required for the same number of units in the coming year. So, again, I'm questioning.
Okay.
We can't amend the default budget at this meeting, but there are contracts in place for, the CBA covers the highway department. But I think the relevant piece is that at this meeting, we can't amend the default budget.
To give you another example, there was $25,000 additional appropriation for, I believe it is, winter maintenance. That falls along the same line.
Okay, so I'll ask the question to the town attorney. I'm looking at the default budget at RSA 4013, and it says, new budget line items cannot be added because they are not part of the appropriations contained in the previous year's operating budget. It says it right here in the RSA. So you're saying even though they added lines, I'll step down as moderator to ask this question. Even though additional line items were added, you're saying even though it says it in budget law, that's okay?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I think the basic premise is at this meeting, we can't amend.
So when can it be amended? It's an erroneous default budget. People have pointed out. Line items have been added that was not at the public hearing.
Well, a special hearing can be scheduled not sooner than 7 days.
So that would be a remedy. Okay. And that would be a special hearing that the Board of Selectmen would, if they choose to have a hearing.
Another public hearing.
Or another public hearing, okay. Okay, did you have a question?
I did.
Okay. I'm going to have, Sandra's having trouble with her knees, so I'll have her speak from here.
Also, I've just, someone ran me off the road, so I've been in a snowbank for the last 40 minutes, and I apologize for being late. I agree, from what I heard Lee say, and from what Bobby has said, I have gone over the default budget, and I believe that a lot of line items have been added, which you cannot do. Figures have been changed, which you can't do. And actually, the default budget has to be the same as it was last year, with the exception of contracts and one-time expenditures. So I believe that the default budget is not what it should be, and it's an illegal, budget for this year. Has this been brought up? I'm also on the budget committee, and it has been brought up to the budget committee. And when it was voted 5-2. 5 of the budget committee members did pass it. There was 2 of us who did not. But if there's any paperwork, and I don't know whether there is or not, it would be a good idea to look at that before a special meeting and before you vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? Does the attorneys, okay.
Pat Tucker, I do have a question about the budget. I brought it to Eli, and I thought maybe he'd bring it up. The line for property revaluation, we are currently in our reval cycle, and we have a contract with CMP for, I think it's either $19,000 or $21,000, and the line says $1. Why?
Okay, who wants to address this? It's a contract. It's not in the budget. It's supposed to be, did you say for 19,000?
I'm pretty sure it's 19 to 20, something like that.
And it appears as $1. Is anybody trying to come up with an answer?
We're working on it now, Laura.
All right. If David wants to speak, he can go to the microphone just like anybody else.
Hey, David is just showing me the budget that you folks have under property reval or whatever it's called. property taxation, it says $15,102. That is correct. There's a $13,000 line for general assessing, $1 for appeals, $2,100 for a tax map update, and $1 for property reval. We have a contract with the assessing firm for property reval, which I'm pretty sure it's between $19,000 and $21,000. And if it's not in this budget, as we, as we propose, and not in the default budget, because there's a contract, then the town of Ashland, the selectmen, when it comes time, will have to find $21,000 to pay this bill out of the budget that's voted.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Fred.
Just takes me a second, Madam Moderator. My knee locks up in the morning, so if we were to appropriate another $21,000, it would be on top of the $21,000 that was appropriated last year. Revaluation ends on March 31st. That's when the contract ends. The new evaluation year is for pickups. That's the $15,000. So we've already paid the revaluation firm, or have an obligation to pay them under the prior budget for the $23,000. If we appropriate another $23,000, we just doubled the cost of the revaluation.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Seeing no hands, Article 4 will appear on the ballot as written. Article 5, no tax impact. Shall the town of Ashland vote to raise and appropriate as the Ashland Electric Department operating budget, not including appropriations by such special warrant article and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session, for the purposes set forth therein totaling $3,500,532. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $3,256,298, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town of Ashland or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10, 16, and 16, to take up the issuance of a revised operating budget. Recommended by the Budget Committee 5-2, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Are there questions on electric department budget, operating budget? Okay, Lee? Lee, you want to
Again, I challenge the default budget. To give you an example, they have what they call smart meters for $266,694. And that doesn't even have a account number for it right now. They have a new hydro thing for $10,000. I mean, it just goes on. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 different lines that don't have any account numbers.
Okay. So Lee is looking at something from the Budget Committee then. You're looking at the MS, what's it called? They don't have those. Okay. All right, Lee's going to show the lawyer this, just to, so she's aware of what he's talking about. I'll go get you some.
saying it can't be fixed, it's just
Okay.
that's something that,
When
the board.
My understanding is you already recommend to bring it.
You're not listening. The town attorney said that this cannot be fixed, and it can't be remedied here today. A special public hearing would have to be called prior to the printing of our ballot for March 8th. And I'm sure that's on a timeline. That's just the remedy.
Moderator.
Yes,
And actually, it will be eventually up to the Board of Selectmen to determine if that's consistent with the items that can go into a default budget.
yes.
The default budget can't contain anything, it's prescribed by statute, so if you want to talk more about the process, we can, but it will ultimately be up to the Board of
The
Selectmen.
different line items, it's dictated by statute is what you're saying,
Yes,
of the default. I thought that's the point everybody was making.
yeah, I think it is, but the review and the.
Oh, the review, the process, I see,
Will come back to
I
the
see
Board of
what you're saying, and it is up to the Board of Selectmen to call another public hearing, to set another public hearing. Thank you. Go ahead.
Actually,
Yes?
I think regardless of whether they hold a hearing, under 4013-11B,
Under 4013-11B, the amount shall not be amended by the legislative body, which is this group here. However, the amount may be adjusted by the governing body unless the provisions of 4014B, I won't go through the whole thing, as long as it's done before the ballots are printed, provided the governing body, provided the governing body completes an amended default budget form.
so there is a process
There's a process.
to fix this, it's just not here today.
Okay, I understand. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Amanda Loud. As I look at the tax impacts and the budgets that I'm seeing before me today, a great amount of the money, obviously, is the water and sewer, $5 million, which, while it has no current tax impact, as Patsy pointed out, it does have the wording for something that could happen in the future because, as Fred pointed out, we just don't know what the future could bring. And now I look at the amount for the Ashland Electric Company as well, which is a significant amount of funds as well, with questions about the default budget and, as Lee was bringing up, whether certain items that cost the town money to provide would be there in a default budget. So my question that I'm just posing, and I doubt I'm going to get an answer, we are a small town, and we don't have deep pockets. And the sewer and the electric company are expensive. It doesn't seem to me that this $5 million bond thing is really optional.
Okay, excuse me, Amanda.
So my question is-
Excuse me, Amanda, we're discussing Article 5 now.
So as to Article 5, my question is, has the Board of Selectmen considered piggybacking our electricity onto another company besides Ashland Electric for cost-saving purposes? Or have you considered piggybacking septic as well? I'm just posing that out there. I wonder if, as I look at the numbers under Article 5, can we afford it?
Okay, I believe a discussion of what Amanda brought up would be changing actually what we're presenting here. It's kind of it's the same department, I realize, but piggybacking and everything is changing the entire concept of this warrant article as it's printed, as we're looking at today, to my knowledge. Is that correct, to the attorney? We have to look at what's presented to us today.
Yes, absolutely. We can't introduce a new warrant article today, and we can't amend any warrant article that's here to change the subject of it.
So in a way, piggybacking would perhaps,
Well, I don't know if I'd call it piggybacking. I think if I'm understanding Ms. Loud correctly, she's raising the question as to whether the town can in fact afford.
right.
And that's
Okay.
a question that hasn't been noticed or warranted, so next year. that'd be fine, but we're past that.
Okay, we're past that point in the process of the timing. Sandra, did you still have a question?
My question is question to the lawyer. If these articles hold the operating budget as well as the default budget, and there may be a problem with the default budget depending on what is found out later. We can't amend it, we can't change it, we can't add a new one. What do we do with these articles today?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I mean, either the operating budget will pass or it'll be a default budget. But the Board of Selectmen can look at the default budget and consider whether that was properly put together. But I'm not sure what, I'm flailing a little here because I guess I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
What I'm asking is that it's been presented to the people who are here that the default budget doesn't appear to be what it should be. So how can we discuss these articles if they're erroneous?
Well, you can certainly discuss what's in the budget. You can make adjustments to the budget, you just can't change the default budget at this meeting. So if there's an operating budget and a default budget.
So you're saying we really can't amend, can the main budget be, like we're on Ashland Electric right now, can the main budget go up or down by motion here, or not?
Yes.
The main budget can, but not the default budget. Okay, that's for my own clarification. Thank you. Go ahead.
Madam Moderator, we seem to be beating around the proverbial bush. If there's a problem with the default budget is certified by the selectmen. It's filed with the Department of Revenue. If somebody has a complaint about the default budget, that should go to the selectmen. If the selectmen determine the default budget should be changed, they can get permission from the Department of Revenue to change it, which changes the amount in the warrant.
Correct. Which is kind of, yes, Sandra?
I believe the town manager just spoke about the DRA. I called the DRA the other day, and I can certainly provide her name, the whole discussion, but we did discuss the default budget on electric, on water, and on sewer, and I was told they were incorrect.
Okay, are there any other questions? Seeing no further questions, Article 5 will appear on the warrant, on the ballot as written. Article 6, no tax impact. Shall the town of Ashland vote to raise and appropriate as the Ashland Water Department budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein totaling $344,072. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $341,092, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town of Ashland or by law, or by the governing body. Or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 4013 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Recommended by the Budget Committee 5-2, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Are there questions on, or comments on the Water Department? Main budget as the article. All right, seeing no hands, Article 6 will appear on the ballot as written. Article 7, no tax impact. Shall the town of Ashland vote to raise and appropriate as the Ashland Sewer Department operating budget, not including appropriations, by special warrant articles and other appropriations, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant, or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $634,066. Should this article be defeated, the budget shall be $614,126, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town of Ashland or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 4013 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Recommended by Budget Committee 5-2, recommended by Board of Selectmen 5-0. Do I have any questions, comments on water? Sandra?
I'd like to say that, well, we're on this particular article right now, but I maintain that all the articles that we have just discussed, water, sewer, electrical, the default budget is wrong. And I've gone over that extensively, and by hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay, and from what the attorney says, we can't, the Board of Selectmen has to convene a special public hearing.
I think Fred summed it up much better
Right.
than I did. And I think
Right.
that's the process. And that
Right, that's the
he provided
process.
a very concise rationale for why that's.
Right.
And he's absolutely right.
Okay.
So if there's a problem with the default budget, that's a different process. We can discuss the line items in the budget or the budget here, but.
Of the
not
operating
default
budget, but not the default.
Right, the default happens if you don't pass the budget.
Exactly. Okay. Okay, seeing no other, anybody else have a question, comment? Article 6 will appear on the ballot as written. Article 7, no tax impact. Wait a minute, is that the one I just read? Oh, sorry, hello. I thought, gee, that sounds familiar. Oh, sorry. Article 8, estimated tax impact, 66 cents. Shall the town of Ashland vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $167,988 for the purchase of a trackless M7 municipal sidewalk tracker? I'm not going to read all these other things because I don't even know what they mean. Existing M6 sidewalk tractor with a 6-foot front mounted finish mower with surf tires, triple agitator drop spreader, and full front plow to be traded in. That is to be traded in. Board of Selectmen 5-0 recommended. Budget Committee recommended 7-0. Are there any questions on the sidewalk, the purchase of a new trackless sidewalk tractor? Yes.
Lisa Rollins. I would like to know,
Speak up a little bit, Lisa, we can't
I'm
hear you.
sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Get real close.
We are trading in a M6 that has a finish mower, and I would like to know if we are going to be getting a finish mower with this one, or do we need one for that? And thank you for doing such a nice job taking care of our roads and streets. You do an excellent job.
Amen.
Well, good morning, everybody. Craig Moore, the Public Works Director. The finish mower we have, as some of you will know, but we haven't used the finish mower on the ballpark for probably since 2017. It's too heavy for the field, so we bought a zero turn, which is better for the field. So the trackless is very, very heavy. That's what makes it so desirable for our sidewalks. They're very hilly and windy, and that machine is suited for that, but not quite suited for a playing field. If we had a big field we weren't playing on, we could keep that, but we're going to trade it in because it makes it more valuable to trade it in with the old equipment we're not going to use. So,
I did go online and I did look at this new M7.
Yep.
There's a full brochure available on their website.
there is, yeah. It's the same thing as we got, you know, the old one's old, and it comes back just about every storm with something wrong with it. It lives its life in salt, so it's just, most towns get rid of them in about 5 to 7 years. This thing's, it's about a little over 10 years old now, so we don't need that, but we are keeping the other attachments because they'll fit on the new one. That's the good part. We don't have to buy the other attachments for it again.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Good.
So that's probably gonna save us 50 grand. They're so expensive, all the attachments.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions on the sidewalk plow? Seeing no other, Article 8 will appear as written. Article 9, no tax impact. Shall the town of Ashland vote to establish a contingency fund for the current year for unanticipated expenses that may arise and further to raise and appropriate $25,000 to be deposited into the fund. The sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. I think that should be a period, not a question, because it's like, anyway. Any appropriation left in the contingency fund at the end of the year will lapse to the general fund. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by Budget Committee 5-2. Any comments or questions on Article 9? Do you want?
The question, change the period of the fund to a question mark?
Yeah,
Change the
if that, yeah, because that's in a, yeah, I think that should be a period if that's not too much, because it's a statement, not a question there.
Right, the question should come after the fund.
Yeah. Okay, Article 9 shall appear on the ballot as written with the correction where it says, "and no amount to be raised from taxation," period. Article 10, estimated tax impact 4 cents. Shall the town of Ashland vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the Building Maintenance and Repair Capital Reserve Fund for the purpose of maintaining and repairing all town buildings. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Any comments or questions on this? Seeing none, Article 10 shall appear on the ballot as written. Article 11, estimated tax impact 10 cents. Shall the town of Ashland vote to raise and appropriate $25,000 to be deposited in the Fire Department Capital Reserve Fund established in 2013 for the purpose of repairing or replacing fire department vehicles. Board of Selectmen recommended 5-0, recommended by Budget Committee 7-0. Any questions on this? Seeing none, Article 11 shall appear as written. Also, there is a nice pass out over here, if you haven't gotten it. It lists all the various capital reserve funds, which could be helpful for you in March, that tells how much is in the different funds now. I just thought I'd add that. Article 12, estimated tax impact, 11 cents. Shall the town of Ashland vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $27,142 for the fifth and final payment for the 5-year lease purchase of the Public Works loader? Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended Budget Committee 7-0. Any comments, questions? And I think there's a typo there where it says recommended by then Budget Committee. At least that's what it says on mine. I don't know if it says it on yours. Yeah. Article 12 then will appear on the ballot as written. Article 13. Shall the town of Ashland vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be deposited into the Police Department Capital Reserve Fund established in 2013 for the purpose of repairing and purchasing police department vehicles? Recommended by your Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Any comments, questions on that? Okay, seeing none, Article 13 will appear as written. Article 14, shall the town of Ashland vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be deposited into the Ashland Library Building Capital Reserve Fund established in 2015 for the purpose of purchasing, building, and or renovating a facility, including furnishings and equipment for the Ashland Town Library. This was not recommended by the Board of Selectmen 4-1, and it was recommended by the Budget Committee 5-2. Are there any questions or comments on this? Alice?
Good morning. This, as you know, there'll be another warrant article later on with more exciting news about the library. But this capital reserve fund will help the library maintain their building and equipment no matter where the library is located.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, sir. And if you go and state your name, please.
My name is John Coolidge. I'd like to ask the Board of Selectmen why they don't support this article and why they are supporting all the other articles going to similar funds for various operations.
Okay. Does anyone from the board want to speak to that? Here.
Thank you. Bob Letourneau, Selectman. The Ashland Library Reserve Fund has $136,531 in it of your taxpayer money. And we didn't feel as though that they needed an additional $25,000.
Okay. Did that answer the question for you, sir?
Not really. I'll bring it up in the next article.
You'll bring it up when? I didn't hear what you said.
I'm aware that there's been a estimate done on the current library building, which does not meet some ADA compliant. It does not meet a lot of structural stuff, and it needs a lot of repair work, much more than $100,000. And I think it's foolishness for the select board not to support the building fund for that library.
Okay. Thank you for your opinion. Any other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, Article 14 will appear on the ballot as written. Article 15, estimated tax impact 10 cents. Shall the town of Ashland vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be deposited into the Department of Public Works Capital Reserve Fund established in 2016 for the purchase of vehicles or equipment, replacement or repairs. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-1. Any questions on this? Okay, seeing none, Article 15 will appear as on the ballot as written. Article 16, shall the town of Ashland vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $125,000 to be deposited into the Road and Bridges Capital Reserve Fund established in 2013, recommended by your Board of Selectmen 5-0, and recommended by the Budget Committee 6. I guess that's 1 abstain. No, there can't be 6-0-1. You have 7 people total. It is? Okay, 6-0-1. Any questions on that? Okay. All right, Sandra.
I have a question as to how much money is in that fund at the present time.
Okay, yeah. And that capital reserve fund, I think that's real helpful to everybody. Seeing no other questions, Article 16 will appear on the ballot as written. Article 17, no tax impact. Shall the town of Ashland vote to create a compensated leave trust fund in accordance with the provisions of RSA 31:19A for the purpose of placing in trust appropriated funds for the payment of compensated leave to employees in order to fully fund such benefits over time to avoid the expenditure of large unanticipated sums that would otherwise endanger the financial and operational requirements of the town and its departments. Funds shall be transferred at the direction of the Board of Selectmen from the annual operating budget from the balance of the account for sick buyout, should there be any remaining balance at the close of the fiscal year to fund such trust, and the Board of Selectmen shall be agents of the town to expend such funds when required to pay for compensated leave upon separation from the town by eligible employees, and further to fund this article by raising and appropriating $10,000 to be deposited in the trust fund. I'm going to add that's the longest one sentence I think I've ever read in my life. This, no judgment, but that's a long one. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. The fund shall be revocable by vote of the town. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-1. Any comments or questions on this article? Andrew?
It mentions undesignated, it mentions undesignated funds. Could you or someone tell me how much money is in that fund at the present time?
Thank you, Fred.
Not a problem, Madam Moderator. Madam Moderator, the unassigned fund balance currently has a balance as certified by our auditors of $1,330,648. We expect that to expand to approximately $1,400,000 after the next audit.
Okay. Someone that hasn't spoken yet, if you go to the mic. Thank you.
Ann Richards. And where does the money for the unassigned fund balance come from? Does that come from taxes? Or where?
Good question. Fred's going to answer that.
Always a good question. I guess we have to blame the auditors for the way they put things together. The balance comes from the unexpended appropriations from prior fiscal years that were authorized by the town but not expended. Those funds have to be accounted somewhere, and they're accounted for in that particular fund. If we receive excess revenues above what was used to set the tax rate, those revenues go in that fund as well. So for the entire history of the town, I think $1.3 million is pretty small. Incidentally, that gives us the operating income to operate the town for the following year. It's all funny money because you have to run against that, the unpaid property taxes. So it's sort of a balance, but the auditors have thought this up along with the state, so we have to keep track of it. And these funds are sort of, we set this up sort of as a revolving fund so that if funds aren't used, they go back in. Try to keep the balance where it is.
I have a question. I'm going to step down as moderator and ask this as a taxpayer. You mentioned, I believe you referred to unpaid taxes.
That's correct.
In your statement.
Yeah.
What physically happens with just a simple, if it's a simple answer, if people have not paid their taxes, is there a process? They're given so many days that they have to come up with a payment plan, or?
There is a very lengthy process,
Okay.
which is administered by the tax collector and the Board
Okay.
of Selectmen.
And so that's looked into if somebody just completely ignores
Yes,
paying
in
their
fact, there are several statutes dealing just with that particular
Okay,
issue.
okay. All right, thanks for the clarification. All right. You have to go to the microphone because nobody can hear you otherwise. Thank you.
On this item, is there an estimate?
Step forward.
Is there an estimate of what the town's exposure is on this compensated leave trust fund? Let's say over 5 or 10 years. What are we paying for here? What is the amount?
You're not going to pay me anything, but that's beside the point. Having come from a town where this is a problem, and it is in most towns, that's just not recognized and addressed. I'm trying to address it here as I did in another community. What happens here is the town sets personnel policies, and they set ordinances dealing with vacation and sick leave and whether or not those funds can be carried forward into following years. If they can be, and an employee retires or leaves employment, we have to pay those funds to them. If they've worked here for a very long period of time and they've accumulated a lot of money, and I don't expect this to be this bad in this particular town, but I did work in a town where we paid over $125,000 to one employee just to leave because of time accrued. That won't happen here, but we don't want to take the chance of having to take $10,000 or $20,000 out of a budget in some department and have to pay someone for leaving. That's going to impact that department. And you can see our budgets are pretty small for departments. You could take 10% of a budget away and you'd be in serious trouble. I'm sure the highway superintendent or public works director would not be in favor of that particular function if it happened, or Patsy as a town clerk and tax collector wouldn't be happy if she had someone that had to leave and had to pay a huge chunk out of her budget. I wouldn't be happy if it was out of my budget. So this is kind of an insurance policy that builds slowly over a period of time if the money is available. If it's not available, it doesn't get any bigger. But at least it's some insurance policy to protect the taxpayers from getting, not ripped off, but taken advantage of in certain situations. And once the town votes to put a personnel policy in effect and you're under that policy, you're under that policy until you leave. They can't change it. They can't change the requirements of it for you as an employee. So if you have a very generous policy, as we do in a couple of departments in the town, then those funds have to be appropriated somewhere along the line or taken out of the regular budget. That could be debilitating to the individual department. That's the purpose of this, to prevent that over time. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but if it does, over time we'll build this account. It won't be a burden on the taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. Can you follow up, and then I'll take your question next. Follow up on that.
Before you go away, you know, it's an insurance policy, but whenever you buy an insurance policy, you have some estimate of your exposure. I mean, does the town have an exposure in this instance? Is this hypothetical? Do we have some idea of what potentially we could face if we go forward and we don't have this fund?
We don't have an estimate, and it is real. We have a couple of independent agencies that we appropriate money for that this, in fact, could be impacted by. We just don't know. One of my tasks, being new here, is to ask the auditors to audit that in the coming year and to give us a statement within the town audit as to what that impact can be and how long it will be before it becomes unmanageable. Hopefully never.
Okay. Did you still have a question, sir? I guess you can just hang out there.
Does this, a question and a comment, does it include all town employees or just those under contract?
It includes all town employees. And the reason I say that is because if you have a contract that contains the personnel provisions in the existing personnel section, then it pertains to you. If your contract doesn't have those in there, it doesn't pertain to you.
Okay. You have another question?
Because I believe some employees do not have contracts with town.
Okay.
I would like to see it include all employees. And then the unassigned fund, just a comment. Really, that's taxpayer funds. So when you're saying there's no tax impact to a particular article, it's you hold our bank account. Those are our funds, our tax funds that are being held by the town. So there is a tax impact.
Correct. Yeah, it means no current tax. I understand what you're saying.
It means no current tax. We understand these are taxpayers' funds, and we're asking you to allocate them to a particular purpose. They can also be allocated to a number of other purposes required in the statute by the selectmen or the town meeting or other individual organizations for specific purposes. But in this particular case, we're suggesting you purchase an insurance policy by spending nothing. You're still holding on to those funds until they're needed in a separate account. If you feel later they're not needed, discontinue the account. That's why that language is there.
Okay, thank you. Do you have another question?
I agree with the gentleman who was up before, the town manager, that the undesignated funds or the unassigned funds do come from all of us who pay our taxes. And if there's 1.3 million, say now, and possibly 1.4 million in the not too, distant future, is that the DRA recommends between 5 and 17% that you hold, say, in undesignated or unassigned funds for emergencies. We have way more than what we need. And if and this is according to the DRA, because I did talk to her the other day, and this is what she was telling me. And if we have that amount of money and we're spending where it does say that there's a tax impact of, say, 49 cents, does the Board of Selectmen, or are they thinking about lowering the taxes this year, and using some of that money? It takes $265,000, I believe, to lower the taxes by $1. How much are we raising the tax rate with the articles that may be approved in March? And can we lower the taxes by $265,000?
Okay, does anybody from the board want to? Okay, Mr. Litter.
Just so folks have an understanding of why that fund is there, when we take out a bond, like the bond we're going to be anticipating for the water treatment plant, that money being in reserve gives us a lower rate on the bond, saves us a lot of money. And that's the reason why we try to keep that in escrow, because the bond ratings are very, very effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Were you just standing up or did?
Just standing.
Oh, okay. Stretching your legs, okay. All right, seeing no other questions, Article 17 will appear on the ballot as written. I'm going to entertain a motion to limit reconsideration of those articles discussed so far. All right, I made the motion. I mean, no, you have to make the motion. I'm entertaining. Okay, she's going to make the motion. Do I have a second on that? Fran Newton seconded the motion. And what that means is, because discussions has been very good, but we can't go back and start, it means we've discussed it and y'all have your choices March 8th. So I have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. And I'd like a vote, and everyone hold your red cards up to vote. It's not a voice vote. There's a motion on the floor to limit reconsideration of those articles discussed so far. All those in favor, raise your cards, please. All those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Moving along, Article 18, no tax impact. Shall the town of Ashland vote to discontinue as a public Class 5 road Parkway, formerly known as Hill Street, in accordance with the provisions of RSA 231:43, Parkway being a two-lane road approximately 228 feet in length, beginning at the intersection with the right-of-way of Mill Street and ending at the, there's two at the, ending at the intersection with the right-of-way of Depot Street. Not recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0. Any questions or comments? David?
Could I just ask? I'm just curious why the selectmen did not recommend this article.
Did everybody hear that? David's? Okay.
The Board of Selectmen doesn't feel as though that we want to give away any town property that we do not need to give away.
Thank you. Lee?
If this is not recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, and it has not been a petition warrant article, then who wrote it?
Actually, that's a good question because it doesn't have any monetary. I mean, there it doesn't have any monetary. Does somebody on the board? All right, Fred. Who wrote the article?
Madam Moderator, I'll claim the right of authorship on this particular one. The town has attempted to vote on this 2 or 3 times in the past, and every time they've attempted to vote on it, it's been an illegal warrant article because the town failed to provide the statutory requirements of 14 days prior to the date of vote by certified mail to all the abutting property owners. We were told this would be petitioned again this year, and it was sort of privately agreed that, okay, let's let the selectmen put it in. We'll get the town to do a legal vote on it and make a decision as to whether or not we're going to discontinue it or we're going to keep it. So the article is here to correct 2 previous mistakes in 2 previous articles. That's the only reason it's here.
So I understand the previous ones, the butters were not notified, properly notified, 14-day.
That's correct. Okay. They're required to, under the statute, be notified 14 days before the final vote.
And we have the receipts from them this year? Do we have to notify them now or later?
No, we have to notify them 14 days before the March vote.
Before March.
Okay. Any other questions on? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand, Lisa.
Lisa Rollins, why would we be giving away town property? Wouldn't that property go back on the tax rolls to the person that would be taking it over? And we would be getting tax revenue from that property?
Okay.
That's all right. I need my knee to get some exercise here. Madam Moderator, if this vote were to pass, what would happen is the property that's involved would be split right down the middle. Everyone on one side of the street would receive the property that's directly in front of their property and the opposite way, and that property would then be taxed as private property. It's no longer a town road, it's private property and part of the lots on either side.
Did that answer your? Yeah. Very good. Thank you. Good question. Good answer. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, I do.
Yes, Amanda?
I have a follow-up.
My name is Amanda Loud. I have a follow-up to what Lisa Rollins brought up and Fred verified. If this is putting money, sorry for the slip, if this is putting land back on the tax rolls, doesn't that mean that that's going to add to the tax roll and the amount of revenue that can be raised by taxes because now there's more to tax? It seems to me that it's counterintuitive that the Board of Selectmen would be against that.
I believe Fred already answered that question, but that's a good observation. Good point.
And if I could follow up to that,
All right, you're going to follow up to your own point.
Yes,
okay?
I asked the Board of Selectmen again why they would be opposed to adding to the tax rolls, which could add more taxable property, which would lower everyone else's tax rate to make the pie bigger, smaller slices.
Okay. Mr. Silly?
One of the other things that we're looking at, that property could be used for parking.
Okay, thank you. Sir?
Yeah, Charles Bozzella, I just want to, affirm the vote of the board, because who gives property away? Now, I get it, it goes back on the tax roll, there is some long-term benefit, but the property is valuable. And at a minimum, if the town is going to divest of a valuable property, there needs to be a sale, there needs to be some revenue, there needs to be compensation. I'm very aware of that piece of property, and I would reiterate that also, that there is the potential for parking and there's a potential for some other uses. So I would be very concerned that if we as the residents decided to give our property away without just compensation.
Okay. I didn't know if the attorney had a... Did you have a comment, or? No? Okay, okay. Yes, Mark?
My name is Mark Ober. I worked for the town for 38 years. In that 38 years, the town did not maintain that road at all. I don't know what they're doing now, but I used to plow that route, and the road was never plowed.
Okay. Good information. Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, Article 18 will appear on the ballot as written. Now we're moving on to the petitioned warrant articles. Article 19, estimated tax impact 2 cents. Shall the voters raise and appropriate $6,000 to Grafton County Senior Citizens Council for services for Ashland residents? From July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021, Grafton County Senior Citizens Council provided services for 75 residents, Ashland residents, and ServiceLink provided services for 31 residents. These services included nutrition, transportation, outreach support, ServiceLink support, and more. The cost of providing these services was $68,760.48. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Questions? Were you getting ready to ask a question? Oh, okay, all right.
Good afternoon, my name is Rich Perret. Times being what they are, I'd like to take this $6,000 number and double it. So I have a motion on the floor that I'd like to take the $6,000 and make it $12,000.
Okay, I'm going to look to the attorney for this. I do not believe that petitioned moneyed warrant articles can be amended on the money. Is that correct?
No, they can be amended.
Yes.
Oh, they can be?
Yeah, the only thing you can change, you can't change the content, you can change the dollar value.
All right, would you write the motion down, please? And then as your, yes?
On that Article 19, that shouldn't be
And while Rick is writing his motion, he's making a motion to raise the amount to from $6,000 to $12,000. That's his motion. Do I have a second?
Sure. Not.
Who? Lisa Rollins seconded it. Patsy.
Number change, or do you need to write out the whole warrant article?
It's Article 19. Okay,
Point of order?
yes?
Article 19 on the handout says $68,760.48.
That's the cost.
That's what it costs to provide the services. I believe that's what it says. That's the cost of providing the service. This is just what the town, yes, the expense. Yes. Can you go to the microphone? I hate to ask people to do that, but everybody can't hear you otherwise.
Shout. So that just means that instead of us putting 6,000 into the pot, we'd put 12,000 into the pot?
Correct. If I understand Mr. Perez, yes. Okay, Patsy?
Pat Tucker, if they needed $12,000, they would have asked for $12,000 because we would have voted it probably. But they only asked for 6, so why would we give more than what they need?
And that is true. There's several of these warrant articles now, and they know they need to get in petition warrant articles, and they look at their budget, these different agencies. I'm not saying pro or con either way, but there's a process for this. And they figure out, because we're not the only community they ask for funds from. And so that's just the way it works, if anybody does not know that's the way it works. Rick?
Yeah, exactly. You know, they asked for $6,000, and we're going to be a generous community. We just spent $300,000 on 2 articles. So let's all throw in another 2 cents and do the right thing here. Because let's face it, this community here is elderly, all right? If we did the demographics of who we are in this community, I'm sure there's a percentage of it that would surprise us as the amount of people that are over the age of 60 or 65 or whatever. And we can all pick out our neighbors that could use the extra help, and these people are doing it. So 2 cents on your tax bill is not going to break anybody in this room.
What did you just mean when you said we've already voted 300,000?
Well, no, as we go along with these warrant articles.
Yeah, but we haven't voted yet.
Exactly. My apologies.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Okay, thank you. Okay, the vote is on Article 19, petition warrant article, to raise and appropriate $12,000 rather than the $6,000 Grafton County asked for. All those in favor, raise your card. You want to count? Okay. I wasn't counting. All right, so she wants me to count too. All right, those in favor, sorry, folks.
Sorry, folks. I'm sorry.
Okay, 21-4. And all those opposed to raising it to 12,000, which if you're opposed, it would remain at 6. All those opposed, raise your cards. Okay. No, we count 14. You count 17? 14.
Okay. We disagreed.
All right, so those opposed. 1, 2.
Did you have yours up?
Yes. Am I not supposed to? 16 opposed, so that motion passes. And the Article 19 will now read, shall the voters raise and appropriate 12,000 to Grafton County senior citizens? Does that conclude the discussion on that? Okay. Pardon me? Go ahead, Mr. Letourneau.
Moderator, the article is written, shows recommendation by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, and the Budget Committee 7-0. Will that still say the same with the 12,000 figure?
You would have to, you would have to have a meeting to change your recommendation before the ballot's printed. I believe that would be the, from both the budget, yes. Yes.
I posted that the Budget Committee would be having a meeting after this meeting, if necessary, so the Budget Committee will be voting on it today.
And any other things that might get changed. Okay, thank you, Jeanette. Article 19 will appear on the ballot as corrected to the figure $12,000. Article 20 by petition. And also, I believe that would raise the estimated tax impact to 4 cents, because it's just double. Is that how the tax impact is? So that needs to be corrected too, to be correct. Article 20 by petition, estimated tax impact 2 cents. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $4,100 for the operation of Tri-County Community Action Program Service Program for Ashland, transportation, energy assistance, weatherization, guardianship, Head Start, homeless intervention and prevention, disaster relief, Tamworth dental care. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Are there any questions or comments on this? I have a question, if it's okay with the audience if I ask it, because I'm moderator. Technically, I'm not supposed to ask any questions. Is it all right with everybody to? Why is Tamworth dental care in that? Because Tamworth is a different community.
Because it's part of it is part of the area served, and people in this community and area use Tamworth dental care. I am one of them.
Okay. No other questions? Did you have a question, David? Okay. Article 20 will appear on the ballot as written. Article 21 by petition, estimated tax impact 4 cents. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $9,656 for Pemmy Baker Community Health. As a nonprofit agency, Pemmy Baker provides services without regard to ability to pay and serves many uninsured and underinsured clients. Many of the services PBCH provides are not covered by insurance or reimbursed fully by insurers. The requested appropriation amounts to less than $5 per year per resident based on recent census data and represents a very small fraction of the cost of providing services to residents to their home. PBCH provides home health, hospice, palliative care in the Ashland community, as well as educational programs, workshops, and bereavement counseling. These services to uninsured and underinsured patients help the town limit welfare payments for medical services. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Any comments on this petition warrant article? Seeing none, Article 21 will appear on the ballot as written. Article 22, petition warrant article, estimated tax impact is less than 0. Okay, to see if the town of Ashland will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,250 for Transport Central, a 501c3 agency operating in Plymouth for the purpose of continuing to provide rides for qualified people that have no other means to get to a doctor's appointment or to seek medical treatment. A qualified person is either greater than 60 years of age, disabled, or a veteran not otherwise served. Since it started in 2013, Transport Central has been providing this service for any qualified person in Ashland and all the other municipalities in our 19-town catchment area. In the last 8 years, Transport Central has provided close to 22,000 rides, while our volunteer drivers have exceeded 1 million miles providing trips to citizens in need. Another service offered by Transport Central is mobility management, where we work with the elderly and disabled clients and soul their overall, that doesn't make sense. Solve.
We'll check it out.
Solve their overall transportation issues. This ranges from helping them reschedule their appointments to finding alternative rides for them and helping them understand how to utilize hospital and agency staff and services more effectively. Recommended by the Budget Committee 4-0 to 1. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. By the Board of Selectmen 4-0 to 1. By the Budget Committee 7-0. Any questions on that? Seeing none, Article 22 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 23, petitioned, estimated tax impact as penny, to raise and appropriate funds totaling $3,500, a level funded request to Lakes Region Mental Health Center for delivery of emergency mental health services. These services include access to master's level clinicians and psychiatrists by individuals, police, fire, schools, hospital, and others 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. New in 2022, residents will also have access to a mobile crisis response team that will report to a mental health emergency wherever the individual is located, whether that be at home, work, school, or elsewhere in the community. Services are provided to anyone in need regardless of their ability to pay. Lakes Region is designated by the state of New Hampshire as the community mental health center serving Belknap and Southern Grafton counties. We serve 3,956 children, families, adults, and elders in fiscal year 2021, 78 of whom were Ashland residents. Lakes Region provided emergency services to 17 Ashland residents in fiscal year 2021. They provided $9,146 in charitable care to Ashland residents. Recommended by your Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Any comments on that? Seeing no hands, Article 23 will appear as written. Article 24, petition article, estimated tax pack 1 cent. To see if the voters of the town of Ashland will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of $2,000 to help support Bridge House, homeless shelter, and veterans advocacy. The requested funds shall be used to assist in the delivery of outreach services to maintain housing stability and serve homeless residents of the town of Ashland, prioritizing for veterans. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Any comments on this one? Okay, Article 24 will appear on the ballot as written. Article 25 is a petitioned warrant article, no tax impact. We petitioned the board, okay, to see if I'm going to skip to the second paragraph because the first paragraph is standard legal. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $400,000 for the purchase of the former elementary school property at 41 School Street from Tri-County Community Action Program for the use of the Ashland Town Library, using the sum of $400,000 anonymously donated for this purpose to the Ashland Town Library Trustees, with no money to be raised by taxation for the purchase, said building to be named the Elaine Vallant, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Elaine Vallant Library Building, according to the terms of the donation. Not recommended by the Board of Selectmen 4-1, not recommended by the Budget Committee 4-3. And is there any, Alice?
Hello again, Alice Staples, Ashland Town Library trustee. You probably know that because I've been here before at these meetings. But this time is different. I come bearing gifts, a $400,000 gift to be exact, given to all of you, given to the town of Ashland. If you have the handout, you know all the facts and figures. Thank you to David Rule and Mardine Badger for their very hard work in putting all those facts and figures together. A lot of you have asked questions in the past, and we have tried to answer them all with those facts and figures. This is an incredible, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This is a chance for Ashland to make some real progress at becoming a community that is attractive and welcoming to people of all ages, rich or poor. We need to have the vision to make positive changes. The sidewalk project was one such project that made a huge impact on the attractiveness and accessibility of the town. This could be another step forward. A wise person in this town recently said, "We have to move forward or fall backward." This is an example of exactly that. We've talked a lot about money at this meeting. Is this town so wealthy that we can turn down $400,000? You all know the building we're talking about. It's right over there. It sits high on a hill over this town. It's a beautiful building. It holds a lot of history of the town and could be such an attractive showplace for the town. As you all know, the current building is just too small. In the 2010 master plan, which was 12 years ago, it stated that the building has reached its capacity. Well, 12 years later, it still has reached its capacity. In the facts and figures that you can see a list of issues with the building, including accessibility. It doesn't meet the Americans with Disabilities Act codes. There are many, many other issues with the building. Last week, again, Trustee David Rule was in there with a hairdryer unfreezing pipes in the kitchen. And we also need to thank David Rule for all of his shoveling work at the library. A library can be, I sent an article to the Board of Selectmen and the town manager about libraries and how important they are in a community. 90% of a recent survey says that libraries are welcoming and friendly places, a lifeline for the most vulnerable among us. This may not pertain to you personally, but it may be vitally important to your neighbors. And for elected officials, such as myself and many of you in this room, we have an obligation to everyone in our community. This includes, I saw this figure, I think, just this morning. There are 21% of Ashland residents that are living below the poverty level. Libraries help people, again, all ages, all incomes. The new library building, with its expanded, I think it's triple the square footage of the current library. It could be a center for community services, Pemmy Baker Literacy, Service Link, Scouting, teen programs, another vulnerable population of the town. Libraries can be a center for a community. In Greenland, they had a huge library project, and now they are calling the library the living room of the community. So I urge you to vote for Article 14 and 25. We can make a real difference in this community by this beautiful new library that's being proposed and that's been given to you as a gift. Thank you. Oh, and just, if you all saw the viral article, it's been everywhere, about the young man in Idaho who he wrote a book and he brought it to the public library. This story has gone viral. Everybody's picking up on this story. Libraries are important to communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Do I have some questions from the people? Do you want, she hasn't asked a question yet. You want to go to the microphone, please?
Rebecca Hartley. What would happen to the current library building if we moved the library to the new location?
Okay, Mardine, do you want to answer that?
Mardine Badger. The building, the current library building and the lot that it is on is town property. That would remain town property. The use of the building ultimately would be a decision of the select board, town manager, and depending how it's done, the people of the town. If the building is torn down, that lot would become a park area.
Okay, any other questions on this? Yes, yes, sir.
John Thomas. I'm just curious, why would the selectmen vote this down? What's the reasoning behind the denial of this acceptance of this library?
Okay. Mr. Letourneau?
Thank you for that question. As you know, and you've heard today, Ashland is facing some financial commitments into the future. The water treatment plant is one of them. We will be facing a serious discussion concerning what we do with our trash in the very near future. It could be very, very expensive to the town of Ashland. And we have our current expenses that have to go on. The library building, or the proposed library building, does not come without some additional expenses. By their own admission, it's $183,000 in additional expenses on top of the $400,000 that's going to be accumulated. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. That becomes a 3-story building that needs to be heated, maintained, electricity, furniture, computers, new staffing, all going to be eventually a cost to the town. The previous 4 elections, this has been turned down by the voters of this town. We took all that into consideration in our vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mardine?
In the packet that we have put on the table over there, that many of you have, we also include a section on the current building. If we are to stay in that current building where we are now, we are going to be, meaning the town is going to be faced with some fairly substantial cost to fix a lot of issues with that building and to bring it up to code and to even provide handicapped access to that building. Either way, there is going to be an expense.
Okay, I'd like to ask a question of Mardine. Rick, you come ask your question first.
Go ahead.
Okay, my follow-up to Mardine on the renovations to the present building, that's what this represents.
That's a very preliminary estimate.
How many bids did you get on this? I find it...
Okay, that is not, as I said, it's a very preliminary estimate. That is not a final dealing with construction. What we have done to get to that, we have been working with Sam and Delia Architect. The first step was an evaluation of the building. Second step, they had CCI Construction do a very preliminary ballpark estimate from that list of issues of the building, what it might cost. There is a lot.
What company did you say?
CCI Construction.
Okay, yes.
There are a lot of other steps that we would go through before we come up with any final decision.
Okay, thank you. Rick?
It's a wonderful opportunity, there's no doubt about that. I agree with the Board of Selectmen as to, is the cost prohibitive for us? My whole issue with the building is that who maintains the building? Should the library people be receptive to the town, or the town be receptive to the gift? Then who would in fact maintain the Scribner Center? It's not the library, it's a Scribner Center, let's go, that was protected by a will, that for some reason the DRA decided that we could take that money and just reassign it. Now, I'm not exactly sure how wills stayed out, but I'm pretty sure that the DRA doesn't have probate ability. That's a question.
Yes, for the attorney.
Actually, there is a process, not through the DRA, but as approved by the Attorney General's office, and that can go to court. That's called a side prey petition. And what that means is it takes a charitable use and it examines the charitable use and whether or not there is a comparable charitable use that can be changed. This bequest through the will went through the side prey process, and that's how we got there.
Okay, so then the question would be, should the library secede, where would the monies that were in the trust to maintain that building come from? So this will be a burden on the town. In addition to a new facility, we'll still have to maintain the old facility, or the Scribner Center.
Okay, Mardine, did you want to answer that?
Yes, I do have the money that was in the Scribner Fund, that money stays with that building and that property.
Thank you.
Amanda?
My name is Amanda Loud, and I'm chair of the trustees of the trust funds. Just going back to what Mr. Paré was discussing, and their attorney was to jog everyone's memories, last year, before that, but last year we voted, the Attorney General's office did declare that the Scribner Fund had been depleted, and that did go through the cypre process. We as a town, if you may remember, on the 2021 ballot, did vote to accept what the Attorney General had ruled on that, which dissolved both the Scribner Trust and the will, and turned it into, we accepted it as the Scribner Buildings and Grounds Trust, I got the title right, which would, as Mardine stated, stay with the property. It is not transferable to another building. It stays with the property. However, the tenets of her will have been dissolved. That's now just a trust in support of the property.
Okay, thank you for clarification. Yes, ma'am.
Ann Richards, and the first thing I'd like to do is to thank Anonymous, because I think this is such a wonderful, wonderful gift for the town. My first reaction was, oh my goodness, the wonderful things that could happen. Building is right across from the school. There could be after-school clubs and organizations, and I just can't imagine what this would do for the town. My second thought was, what happens if we say, no, thank you, you can keep your 400,000, we'll stay in the Scribner building, which is a wonderful building. However, it is not ADA compliant, it has lead paint, it has asbestos, and as we have seen, it's going to cost an arm and a leg to fix it up. And I don't know the legalities, but I believe we've been pretty lucky so far that no person with a disability has taken the town to task. I think there can be major fines for towns that do not meet ADA compliance. And if somebody sued the town, I believe, our lawyer could probably tell us, but I believe there can be fines up to $75,000 for the first offense. And there you are, $75,000 down the drain, and we don't have anything for it. So I think we have to start seeing the big picture and don't just think about, oh my gosh, this is going to be expensive. We will get something in return for any extra expenditures. And at the moment, the library is over capacity, it's unsafe, it's, in my mind, unethical that it's not ADA compliant. And why would we say no to such a wonderful opportunity? I didn't know that we could afford to turn down $400,000.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Charles?
Hi, my name is Dave Toth. Yes, if we take over the building, it will cost additional money. The question is, how much money will it cost to maintain that building in the short run, and how much will it cost to maintain the building in the long run, as opposed to the library building that we're in now? And maybe Mardine can come up and answer those questions, but just reading over the information, it looked to me like the cost of maintaining the building is about $20,000 or $21,000 more than the cost of maintaining the current building per year, which is 10 cents, something like that, on the tax burden. There's also the cost of a salary for an additional person, $17,000 to $19,000, so maybe another 10 cents or 20 cents or whatever it is. Over the past few years, we've been putting away $25,000 for a building fund for the library. If we continue to do that, that should take care of all of the long-term cost of maintaining that building and keeping it in good shape. So, yes, we would be increasing the tax burden somewhat, but we'd also be getting an awful lot for that in return. The tax increase is about the cost of buying 2 books, or maybe going out to dinner once over the year. That doesn't seem to me like a significant burden, although I do admit it is a burden for some people in our community. But there are other long-term options as well. Our previous library and a lot of libraries around the state and the country are funded by trust funds. And there's nothing stopping us from building a trust fund to help support the library, and those of us who can afford to contribute to a trust fund, I think could help build that fund over the years and help sustain the building in the long run. Staying in the current building is not without cost either, and if you look at the estimates that we have, and they're just preliminary estimates, just to repair the building is somewhere around $1 million. It's not worth putting $1 million into that building. It just isn't. And, you know, somebody's not only giving us $400,000, but that building over there has had $1 million of improvements put into it. So it's very much the same as saying, well, well, Dave, I'm going to give you, I want you to buy a house, and I'm going to give you $400,000 to buy it. It's going to cost you $400,000. And that house also has been fixed up over the years and is now worth $1 million. Can we afford to turn that down for the minimal costs that we would incur to maintain the building and staff it?
Okay.
I really don't think so.
All right, thank you, Mr. Todd.
Fran Newton. There's a phrase that comes to mind, penny wise and pound foolish. And while I understand the burden on the town and the cost of running a town, this is for the future. And somebody, I believe on the select board, said we need to look forward, not backward. Having been passionate about economic development in my time in the town, this is a contributor to the economic well-being of the town. It makes the town, we have a wonderful school. We could have an absolutely first-class library. Yes, it does not come without cost. But that building would be such an asset to the town, something we could all be proud of. And I frankly would be more than happy to contribute to a trust fund to support that building, because it would mean so much, not just to me, but as Alice pointed out, all of the programs, you know, we want to give more money to the senior citizens. We support our children, Parks and Recreation. We support them happily. I don't have little kids in the school or Parks and Recreation, but I am passionate about providing for all the citizens in our town. And I think it's backward thinking to only think about the dollars and cents when it comes to this incredible gift.
Yes.
I'm Dick Ogden. I have a question. I'm not against this process, by the way, as far as the building is concerned.
Speak right into the mic. Speak right into the mic. Speak right into the mic so we can hear you.
Is that right now?
That's fine.
At any rate, my question will be back to the Scribner will. It's my understanding that when you break or alter a will, the only way it can be done is in court. Not an attorney.
It was.
Well, what court was it in?
State of New Hampshire's, what, probate court? Non-judicial settlement.
Yes, that is true, and that is the side-prey process. In New Hampshire, there has been a process created statutorily that mirrors that, and that can be challenged in court, but it's a non-judicial process that goes through the New Hampshire Attorney General's office, charitable trust unit.
So it really doesn't get changed by a judge, though.
Well,
No.
it does. It does. It just
Amanda, let's let the attorney answer.
you don't have to have the same, you don't have, for certain types of, and I don't want to get into too much minutia, but Amanda's right, this had the assets were depleted.
Okay.
So there is a process that goes through the Attorney General's Charitable Trust Unit, who regulates charitable trusts. It is part of the judicial process, and it certainly is part of the side-prey process. So it was done in a way that is compliant with law and that is compliant with that process for modifying charitable gifts.
If that's the case, all right. I just I didn't feel that was the case, that it could be done, or was done legally. An attorney is not a judge, and attorney gives an opinion, but not a reading.
But it was not our attorney's office who changed the.
Okay.
It was the Attorney General of the state of New Hampshire, correct?
Yeah,
It was the Attorney General.
It followed the side-prey process, and I'd be happy to talk more length about the side-prey process in New Hampshire, but I don't know that.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
Ann Richards, and I just wanted to add that people are concerned about the maintenance and how it's going to be more than the maintenance on the Scribner building, but the Scribner building really hasn't had any maintenance. So almost anything would cost more than the Scribner building. There's a crumbling foundation plus obviously frozen pipes. So, maintenance has not been done in the past, so almost anything will be more than that.
Okay. Does anybody have any new points? Yes, Lee?
I'm in favor of this. I'm looking at it from a safety standpoint, too. Couple things. How many of you have come around that corner going down onto 132 and somebody's standing there with their door open? That's a safety issue. It's a safety issue if a child is let out of school to go down and do research. That's a safety issue. Put a price tag on that child's life. You can't. The other thing is, if there's still money left in that Scribner trust or whatever you call it, it was mentioned that there's asbestos there. That needs to be cleaned up. That's an expensive cost. Once you clean it up, put it up for sale and put it back on the tax maps.
Okay, Mr. Letourneau?
Mr. Nichols, I'm glad you brought up the issue of safety. Not many people are aware of it, but our Ashland Police Department is in dire need of updating. It is a serious problem. It's a real serious safety issue for the officers that work for the town, and it's something we have to deal with in the near future. This is just one of the impacts that the Board of Selectmen have to take into consideration when you're talking about making another major move like this particular move. The town of Ashland has 2,000 people. Do we need a 3-story building for a library, or do we need a new police station? And that's where it really comes down to. Thank you.
Okay. Alice? Do you have something to add?
I'm not sure what the cost of a new police station is, but this has been given to us as a gift for $400,000. Mr. Toth brought up the amount that this will increase the taxes for the annual cost of running this new library, but there is no major outlay of funds from the town at this point.
Mr. Toth, do you have anything new to add?
Yes, I do. Just briefly, I'm very concerned about long-term costs, and we've heard about some of the long-term costs, but the town does not have a capital improvement plan, so we really don't know what the actual long-term costs are, or how those long-term costs are spread out over the coming years. That's certainly something that the select board should have done and should be doing, so we could all get a better idea of just what kind of investments we need to be making and just what we can actually afford. So I do make that recommendation. We did bring up the cost of the upgrading the water treatment facility.
Okay, we have to concentrate on this 400, we're not going back.
That's a long-term cost.
I don't care if it's a
part of the
long-term-
argument that was made against us, and so I'm just referring to that argument.
I know you
That
are.
money is coming out of septic receiving funds. There is no impact to the taxpayers or the ratepayers for that money.
I have a motion on the floor to call the question on Article 25. Do I have a second?
Yes.
A motion to call the question, to stop discussion.
To stop construction.
Yeah,
I'll second that.
She made it.
he seconded it.
Rick was standing there before the motion.
Okay, Rick, go ahead to the microphone. I have an active motion on the floor. Is this a new?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, one last point that what should be made, there's excellent points on both sides of this.
Yes.
There's concerns on both sides of this. The reality of it is, 2 years ago, the then Board of Trustees and myself went to the Tri-County Cap people and approached them about a purchase of this building, et cetera. And our vision at that time was a multi-purpose building for the town of Ashland. Town offices and town library in the same. That would encompass taking to the point, we're gonna need a police station here sooner or later, exactly. You know, the money that's left, maybe the Scribner Center does need to come down, maybe it needs to be raised, as it was stated in the will from Emma Scribner. Very clearly states with it, which time the trust fund could no longer support the maintenance of the building was to be raised, and a green space was to be established. Now, 75 years ago, that lady used that green space word. My point is that if this doesn't go the way everybody would like it to go, it doesn't matter which side of the street you're on, I think it should be revisited as a multi-purpose building for the town of Ashland.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have an active motion and second on the floor to call the question, which means to stop discussion on this particular petition warrant Article 25. I've already, there's been an active motion to call the question.
Point of order, let's have the question out and not have the bias not board.
I'm not biased anyway. I'm the town moderator. I'm trying to run an efficient meeting.
Point of order. People that listening to you, I've noticed several people on both sides saying the same thing. If you've gone, accepted those motions, and there's still questions out here to be asked.
Then vote against the motion.
I certainly will.
Okay. There's a process for this.
Yes, Robert's rules. If you're not-
No, it's not Robert's rules. It's the moderator's rules, and we're not doing Robert's rules. There's an active motion on the floor to call the question on discussion of Article 25. And it has been seconded properly. All those in favor of calling the question, which means discussion on Article 25, please raise your red card. You abstained. You didn't. All right.
Patsy, did you count hours? Yep.
20? Is that what you got? We have 20. Yes? All those opposed, please raise your red cards. Is there 15?
15?
Yeah. 15. The motion passes. Article 25 will appear on the warrant as presented. Article 26, estimated tax impact 1 cent. See if the town will vote and appropriate the sum of $2,000 to be deposited into the account of the Ashland Historical Society for the purpose of maintenance and repairs to the Whipple House Museum, owned by the town of Ashland. Recommended by your Board of Selectmen, 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 7-0. Are there questions or comments regarding Article 26, Ashland Historical Society? Yes, Lisa.
Lisa Rollins, why is the maintenance and repair for this building, if it's a town-owned building, why is the maintenance and repair of this building not included in the building and maintenance repair capital reserve fund? It has $35,000 in it. And why are we asking for an additional $2,000?
Good question. Who? David? David Rule will speak on behalf of Historical. Correct?
I'm the president of the Historical Society. Why it's not included in, it's eligible for, I think it might be eligible for the Building Maintenance and Repair Fund. We've never asked the selectmen to use that, or the town manager to use that for the Whipple House. As to what it might be used for, the building is going to be 185 years old this year. And anything of that age always has problems, and we always get surprises every once in a while. Last year, part of a ceiling in the upstairs collapsed, so that's something we're going to be fixing this year. After it came from the leaking roof. We have had the roof, that section of the roof repaired late last year, but beyond that, things are always decaying on a 185-year-old building. So the thing that comes to mind next is, if once we get past the ceiling, if something else doesn't show up, is that we have 5 chimneys on the building. One of them has been replaced with a moose plate grant, but there was another chimney that was identified by the brick masons years ago as needing to be replaced as well. It's actually a functioning chimney. It's used for the gas heater in the apartment, and the bricks are actually crumbling. So though I can't say exactly what the $2,000 we paid for, but I think that might be the next thing. It's certainly the thing I'm looking at for the next one, but no decision has been made exactly.
Did that answer your question, Lisa?
It did. I just had one more question.
Certainly.
How many town-owned buildings does the town of Ashland currently have?
I don't know that. How many, did everybody hear her question? How many town-owned buildings does the town of Ashland have? Did I say that correctly? Does anybody here know?
How many buildings do we own?
How many buildings do we own? The town.
That we're required to maintain and take care of?
Okay, here, Patsy.
I mean, I can't give you a ballpark, I mean, I can't give you the figure. I can certainly look it up on the assessments and be able to answer the question on Facebook or on the town, through Mardine or whatever.
Okay.
I feel like,
You know, we got water and sewer buildings, we have utility buildings, we
Right.
have town hall, we got...
the Booster Club, we got the beach buildings.
Yeah, there's a lot. Okay.
Okay, good question. All right.
Maybe about 13, 14.
Okay. And if you want, Patsy will be able to.
Yes.
Oh, does anybody else have any? Okay, I see no other hands. Article 26, petition Article 26 will appear on the ballot as written. And I'd like to give a personal thank you to Craig Moore for he and all his crew for the excellent job setting up here for us to have this meeting here today. Thank you for your participation. It's the end of the deliberative session.